Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, to the Assembly Committee here today. Thank you for your time and attention. My name is Giuseppe Palmeri. I represent Jackson Board of Education as its president, and I'm here just to discuss with everyone the S2 funding formula. I know you've heard quite a good bit about that already today. I did have a speech prepared, and I'm actually going to just speak from the heart. S2 started 7 years ago. The Jackson School District was receiving $46 million in state aid at the time. 7 years later, we are now receiving $23 million in state aid. That's a 50% reduction in our aid. Our enrollment at the time was 8,100 students. We now have 7,700 students, so we had about a 15% reduction in our student enrollment with a 50% cut in our aid. And the biggest issue with this, and I'm not pointing any fingers, I actually truly believe that the S2 funding formula was rolled out with the best intentions, and I think that for some school districts there was some success behind this, but for some there was some opportunity. Unfortunately, we were one with the opportunity. The S2 funding formula also freezes other areas. So, for instance, multi-language learning. Our school district 7 years ago had 655 students that were multi-language learning. We now have 940. That's a 459% increase. However, we do not get additional funding for them because of the S2 freezes. Our non-public students that require transportation, that we either transport or pay aid in lieu, has increased from 655 students to 5,584 students, roughly. That's a 752% increase. Our transportation category has been frozen for 7 years, so we're not getting any additional revenue for that. So with all that being said, the biggest issues that we've seen is it's hard for us to properly and thoroughly educate these students. Another thing that we've done, we've eliminated, by the way, 215 staff positions. 7 administrative positions have been eliminated. We had 2 independent auditors come in over the last couple of years and take a look at our books to see where else could we cut, where else could we save. We also invited last year the Ocean County superintendent. He came on in, he looked at our books, and they all came up with the same conclusion. They said Jackson does not have a spending problem. Jackson has a revenue problem. The Ocean County superintendent advised us to take out a loan, a state loan, which we did this year for $10.3 million, just to make ends meet. What comes with a state loan, as you're all aware, is a state-appointed monitor. So we have this monitor, very nice woman. She's been appointed since January, and she looked over our books, and she said the same thing for our next budget. She said, you can't cut anymore. You need to take out another loan and a bigger loan. So we're not overfunded. We're actually underfunded, and we just need some support. I'm not asking, and I'm sorry I'm over time, I'm not asking to go back to 7 years ago. I'm just asking for enough funding so we can maintain what we currently have without continuing to take out more loans. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Palmeri. Sure, Assemblyman Conaway.
You know, it's surprising, I have to say, when you hear testimony of a 700% increase, and I have to sit here and think, how is it possible? I mean, has your population, student population, gone up by 700%? That would sort of make sense.
Are you talking about the non-public transportation, sir? That went up?
Whatever went up 700%.
Yes, so non-public student transportation, we had 655 students 7 years ago that we were, by law, need to pay for transportation. We now have 5,584 students. We border the town of Lakewood. That is a highly Orthodox community. We've been having a lot of Orthodox community members moving into our town, and they send their children to private school. And the law states that we have to transport them and pay for that transportation. Lakewood is paying for over 30,000 children to be transported, their public school district. It's costing them over $30 million a year in transportation. We're starting to see that, and it's becoming unfeasible for us to afford. Now, we want to make sure that the 7,700 students that we have get the thorough and efficient education, but we also want to make sure that the 6,000 students that we have that are private school students, that they're getting to and from school safely. We want to transport those students safely. We want to make sure that every student, public or private, can get to and from school safely and get the best education possible. But with this funding formula, it's hurting us.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Palmeri. Assemblyman Rowe.
I'm sorry, just a quick question. A monitor was appointed. Why was a monitor appointed?
Great question, Assemblyman. Thank you for that. So when we have to take out a state loan, we're only the second district in the entire state to have to take out a state loan for the Board of Education, and this is the first time in the history of Jackson that we have to do this. The other district is Lakewood, that has been taking out loans for several years. I believe up to about $200 million in the loans they are right now. Sure. This was our first for $10.3 million. When we get a state loan, the state appoints a monitor to oversee our spending, to look at our books, to make sure that we are saving the best that we can and we're not wastefully spending. That monitor came in January, and like the two previous auditors, as well as the Ocean County Superintendent, that monitor concluded that we don't have a spending problem. We have a revenue problem, and that monitor says we should not cut any more. We actually need to ask for a larger loan for the 24-25 school year, which is insane.
I agree. And just as a follow-up question, if I may, the transportation students, did I hear you correctly that we're frozen in time from the numbers 7 years ago?
Yes, sir. So what you heard was correct. So we receive $600,000 in transportation aid. That's the same number we received 7 years ago before S2 went into effect. That's under budgeted by $4 million right now, if it was to be reviewed and caught up to where we are now. But being that we're an S2 district, all those numbers freeze from 7 years ago, including special education, including multi-language learning, and also transportation. So we're frozen at that $600,000 number for 7 years, which it should be additional $4 million.
And I assume that in a town of 100 square miles, you can't ask the kids to walk to school?
You're correct, sir. Yes, you can't ask the kids to walk to school. And also Jackson, if anyone has visited Jackson, we don't have a lot of sidewalks. It's mostly just streets. So not only is it difficult because we're so large, it's dangerous. Who wants to have their child, 8, 9, 10-year-old, walking in the street with all these cars? And we're growing. We're a growing town. We have 60,000 residents. So it's very dangerous. So that's why we need the extra funding, especially in transportation, sir.
Gentlemen, may I?
Sure, Assemblyman.
Could you clarify a little bit more around the loan service, how you service these loans when you take them out from the state?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So the Ocean County Superintendent last year, after looking at our books, as well as the two previous auditors, they concluded that we can't cut anymore. Right. So he recommended we take out a loan. So our superintendent, business administrator, they applied through the Department of Education for a loan. The Department of Education gets involved, looks at all of our books and funding, and then they approve or they do not approve of the particulars of the loan. They approved this loan. They advanced our aid payments first, and then as we get closer to the end of the year, they will then provide us what we need in the loan. We applied for $10.3 million. With that, a state monitor is then appointed. That state monitor is to make sure that we're spending our money appropriately, and they actually have veto power over the elected Board of Education state monitor. So if we want to approve a budget and that state monitor says, no, you're spending too much here, they could veto it. However, this particular state monitor has said, no way, you can't cut anymore. So now the monitor...
I hear that, but I was asking specifically about the debt service associated with the loan and how that school district then, is obligated to pay back the loan under what duration, and is it
Yes,
interest?
Sir.
So are you acquiring, are you servicing that loan debt and principal every year, or how are you managing
Yes,
the
sir.
financials?
Yes, sir. So sorry I didn't understand that appropriately the first time. My mistake. So the loan doesn't start for the first year you receive it. Payments start the year after, and it's interest-free for 10 years. So we have to pay back roughly a little over $1 million per year to that first initial loan. However, we will need a secondary loan if we don't get properly funded, and it will continue like so.
Okay. So you are paying back principal. It's interest-free loan. You have it's 10-year duration, and you have. That's essentially you just have to assume that in your budget.
Yes, sir.
Well.
It's a line item in our budget now. Okay. Yes, sir. Every year. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you.